Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. Just so we are clear, I state at some point in time within this video that I would not be posting a YouTube video of this. However, Brocker, remember the Day of Dragons Brocker, has been such an insufferable worm that I decided to rescind that decision and post this statement to my YouTube channel. My apologies for reversing my decision, but I do feel this information needs to be shared. Ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. Yesterday evening, I was made aware of a post made by the Twitter user YetYen, aimed directly at Rachael Messer that was named Racial Rape Suzy. Contained within it were multiple snips of Discord conversations containing some rather batshit crazy statements made by some unknown random person that goes by Slayer19978. Upon checking and reviewing, this person was not a member of Rachael Messer's Discord, was not a member of my Discord, and upon discussion with Tipster, discovered that this individual was not a member of his Discord either. In this post that contained the Discord collage, such as it was, YetYen said in response to Rachael discussing the Suzy Lu debacle, YetYen had the following to say: "That you even dare talking like this to her while you dance around Tipster and try to suck clout from everyone you can find. Victim shaming won't look good for a role model encouraging this petty behavior. Is also not really virtuous. You are pretentious and a liar." To which they continued on, as if any respectable company would risk to have ties with you, while you participate in this dehumanizing, humiliating hate campaign. You, of all people, an artist, you should be better than this. Instead, you have that stalker and abuser Tipster around you. You are also targeted. This went on for quite some time last night in a poorly executed attempt at canceling Rachael Messer. The reason this YetYen person was attempting to drag Rachael Messer through the mud? Well, that was because this Slayer19978 person happened to mention Rachael once within those Discord conversation snips. Apparently, that is all it takes these days to attempt to cancel someone. Simply getting mentioned by an unknown individual on a Discord server that you're not even a part of is all it takes for these people to claim that Rachael somehow endorses such things, despite the fact that she has stated quite publicly, and often, that is not the case and she deplores such behavior. That is apparently all that is needed to be labeled a hate monger and a terrible person that encourages all manner of horrendous things. Even though this YetYen individual admits that they themselves made a mistake, they have refused to take down or correct original posts, instead leaving them up and continuing to engage in a rather sad and weak attempt to salvage something from the situation as opposed to doing the ethical thing, which would be to correct their statements. Now, I, of course, upon seeing this false framing and absolute insanity, chose to defend my close friend because it was the right thing to do. And because of that, I ended up having Brocker, yes, the very same Brocker from the Day of Dragons nonsense, attempt to label me with nonsensical statements as well. Quote, "Because you know what, SidAlpha? You are now an advocate for raping and murdering women. That's literally what your bottom line permitting. The entire point wasn't Rachael Messer herself as an attack, it was the fact that Rachael Messer was included in conversation to be harmed." Which of course is not true at all. Again, YetYen themselves stated, as if any respectable company would risk to have ties with you, while you participate in this dehumanizing, humiliating hate campaign. Now, I could very easily dive into the Suzy Lu nonsense and just as easily point out the consistent pattern of lies and self-contradictions that both Suzy Lu and Stijo have engaged in. After all, it is quite well documented, and that information is freely available for anyone who would actually be willing to put forth even a minimal amount of effort. This quote-unquote hate campaign that these individuals, along with many others as they call it, refers to John Swan and Tipster most notably, along with a great many other content creators. Those that chose to investigate and then call out the rampant and blatant hypocrisy with Suzy Lu and Stijo both. To go into an in-depth discussion would take at best well over an hour, but for the sake of clarity, I feel it worth pointing out a few specific talking points as it is very pertinent to the topics discussed by Rachael Messer within her videos and live streams. Such as Suzy Lu claiming that she owns the copyright to an image of her face, and then, by virtue of deed, of action, she states that there is no world in which fair use could possibly apply in terms of other content creators and their making use of such an image. We know this due to the copyright claims she has filed against other channels for just such an affront. By way of comparison, Suzy Lu's content, which can quite easily be shown and proven to not conform to fair use doctrine, makes use of better than 90% of the content contained within an anime episode, and yet she claims that is fair use, while so much as showing her image by another creator somehow violates her own copyright. Or Suzy decrying quote-unquote bullying behavior, whereas it has also been documented, shown, and proven that Suzy herself has engaged in the very same behavior to a far greater extent. And these creators, Rachel included, have done their best to highlight the issues and underline the rampant hypocrisy, whereas Rachel dared to take things one step further in her initial coverage. She tried to help. She tried to paint a path forward not only for Suzy Lu, but for any anime reaction channels out there in order for them to not end up being damaged due to using the same or following Suzy Lu's method of content creation, if you could even call it that. And yet, we see people like Yen and Brocker, along with many others, holding steadfastly to the false premise that Suzy Lu can do no wrong. After all, why hasn't she been sued by these anime companies if they disagree with what it is she has been doing, people ask. Failing to take into account that the legal process, collecting information, coming up with a strategy, all of this takes an inordinate amount of time. Now, if and when these lawsuits happen, they will follow a set pattern. First is the DMCA takedowns, which Crunchyroll, TV Tokyo, and others have already taken. This did not dissuade Suzy, and so they must now do two things. The first is to go through a valuation process in which they determine the potential benefit and loss ratio to engaging in a copyright lawsuit. That takes time. There are a myriad of factors there to be considered. Then they will prepare documentation at multiple levels if that valuation process shows that they should proceed. Now, I would guess, and bear in mind I am in no ways a lawyer, that a cease and desist letter would follow. Of course, Suzy would ignore that too. Her family connections at YouTube has afforded her with near bulletproof nepotism armor on that site and would only feed into her own sense of ultimate superiority. Then, following off of that would come the actual lawsuits themselves, which, if they occur, will be yet another drawn-out process and would likely end as all legal matters do, with a whimper instead of a bang. And in the meantime, we see a great many people such as Yen and Brocker blindly, even foolishly, attempt to defend Suzy Lu from what they deem to be the proverbial Mongolian hordes, meaning to do nothing more than to cause her harm. Yes, these people absolutely believe anything and everything Suzy Lu and Stijo say, seemingly incapable of engaging in any form of logical thought, and as a result, they have chosen to attack Rachael Messer over something that she was in no way involved in, taking place on a Discord server she is not a member of, by an individual that neither of us are even so much as aware of their existence, all the while somehow still claiming that their efforts are an attempt to protect Rachel. Which I find to be rather hilarious. Yes, I'm attempting to destroy your life and your livelihood because I'm worried about you. How magnanimous indeed. This is third-party removed guilt by association, and the mental gymnastics required to attempt to claim they are somehow attempting to protect Rachel while in the very same breath attempting to cancel her is truly a wonder to behold. What Rachel had done with her initial video along with her follow-up video were a very clear attempt to discuss the legality surrounding fair use, and particularly how it relates to reaction channels that cover anime content in an effort to show other such channels that if they follow the Suzy Lu format, they are not in compliance with the fair use provision of the DMCA, and as such it would be very possible, even likely, that when rubber hits the road in terms of these anime companies such as Funimation, TV Tokyo, or Crunchyroll taking legal action, these channels might also be harmed due to the format of their content and the outcome of those lawsuits. It was a laudable effort on Rachel's part that contained invaluable information within it. Suzy Lu and Stijo responded to her efforts with ridicule and derision, which is no great surprise considering that is their established pattern of behavior. This then resulted in Rachel live streaming several times to discuss just how incorrect they were within their self-absorbed Discord and social media posts, and Rachel had the receipts to back up her statements. And for that, these people would see her canceled, even to the point of taking a clip of Rachel's stream, titling it something completely out of context to what is being discussed, which I have a high degree of confidence this was Brocker's doing. Taking things deliberately out of context is a pattern for him after all. The title of that clip was 1/4 of her year in 1 month. Why would she continue talking about Suzy Lu? where even within that clip, I myself am heard discussing how a large majority of those subscriptions came about as a result of a subwar between viewers for the top spot during a Civilizations 5 livestream where Rachel and I were both playing. So something of which I definitely have a first-hand awareness of, especially as Rachel was sharing her Streamlabs screen with me via Discord at the time to make it easier for me to pause my own speaking when those people had donated and the automation was reading aloud what those donators had written. The beauty of having multiple monitors, after all. In fact, the majority of the subscriptions Rachel has gotten on Twitch have come about due to her just chatting streams and her gameplay streams, where Suzy Lu was never even once mentioned either directly or indirectly. No, those subscriptions and donations were a direct result of Rachel's own personality and the fantastically generous nature of her own audience. But now we see continued false framing of things as Rachel managed to hit a milestone on her channel that happened to coincide with a live stream discussing Suzy Lu, and because of that, these individuals acting in bad faith will now attempt to paint a narrative that the entirety of that accomplishment is solely due to the Suzy Lu drama, which nothing could be further from the truth. However, none of this ultimately really matters, outside of the fact that these intellectually dishonest and deficient individuals are attempting to drag and cancel a fellow content creator and a friend merely for the falsely assumed premise that she is some form of serial harasser and defender of slime. And because I have defended my friend against such attacks, I am being labeled by some as an advocate for rape and murder. And it is that sheer insanity is why I chose to go to such lengths to discuss the events and provide context and opinion behind what has been happening. I won't bother to post an actual YouTube video on this, as that would be providing a far larger platform for these insane allegations than they actually deserve. Even this is probably far more than they would warrant. But I did feel that they had to be addressed, at least in some manner, aside from the wasted effort of back and forth bickering, as these types of people attempt to place you into a direct position of damned if you do, damned if you don't. If we say nothing, we are hiding from the allegations and as such are judged to be guilty by default by these crazy people. If we defend ourselves, then we are somehow attacking our accusers and we're again therefore guilty in their eyes, and they will use either course of action as quote-unquote proof that they were right all along and attempt to further push for said cancellation. A cancel culture is a disease that infests and rots the internet, and we have seen an extreme abundance of it lately. It is a kangaroo court of public opinion that rarely if ever holds any basis on logic or even truth. You dare to dislike this person's actions and wish to not see harm against others that might follow their example, and therefore you are worthy in their eyes of having your life and your livelihood destroyed. It is gross authoritarianism in the extreme. To seek to destroy a person's life merely for holding an opinion that you yourself do not share? The sheer arrogance of it all is staggering. Of course, neither Rachel nor myself condone harassment of any kind, nor do either of us condone threats, doxing, or anything in between. She and I have both stated as much more times than I can count. That is such an obvious truism that it should go without saying, and yet it appears that some people are either too ignorant or too blind to comprehend such a simple concept as that, and so I'm forced to reaffirm this basic idea that critique and public discourse should not be sullied by such actions. We also realize, something these people seem equally incapable of grasping, that we do not have the capacity nor the desire to control the actions of others, especially when those actions take place by people of which neither of us are even aware of their existence, making statements on platforms that we are not a part of, and comporting themselves in a manner in which we do not agree with. And still, Yen and Brocker continue to persist in exhibiting behaviors that could well be considered harassing and slanderous in nature themselves, while claiming they are condemning the very same behavior they are actively engaging in. It is, as I said, intellectually dishonest in the extreme. But even now, I would not wish the same on them. I would not want them or anyone else to face such behaviors. Why would I? Does anyone actually think such things are beneficial in any way? Because they aren't. Not in the slightest. And so, for yet another time, intellectually deficient strangers on the internet are attempting to cancel a very dear friend of mine who has, to her credit, done absolutely nothing to deserve the hatred she has been receiving. Her only perceived crimes are to disagree with Suzy Lu and Stijo, and for the unfathomably immense crime of being my friend. Yes, Yen and Brocker, They are slime. They have conducted themselves in such a deplorable manner that one would be foolish to take them as anything even remotely approaching seriousness. Thankfully, they have done so in such an incompetent manner that their efforts will remain ineffectual outside of the momentary dust-up they have created on social media that will be largely forgotten within a week's time. My hope with this post is to create a reminder about how rabidly insane some people can get, and the damage they will attempt to do as a result, so that other content creators can be mindful of what the true insanity and extreme tribalism of such individuals can bring to the surface, and the potential damage that can result if such individuals might be even a little more intelligent than Yet Yen and Brocker's little band of cohorts. There, I've said my piece. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am SidAlpha. I'll see you next time.